wet fly today. This is a fly out of Ray Bergman's book Trout called the Lake Green. I'm assuming that it was created originally to be fished on a lake called the Green Lake, but I don't know. Unable to find any history on this. I did not do an exhaustive search, but I just didn't find anything real quick when looking around for it. I tied it because I like the body on this. The yellow and the insect green rib on this I think is very attractive. I also think this is going to make a nice little caddis imitation. And it's a fun fly. It's just a quick little fly, 3 materials, it's uncomplicated. That is the Lake Green, and I will get started tying. So I'm going to start the Lake Green by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399. This is a size 8 hook, so this is a little bit smaller than I've been tying lately. After getting that in the vise, I'll debarb the hook. For thread, I'm going to start with a Danville 6/0 in white. The body on this fly is yellow floss, so I don't want to darken that up by starting with a black thread. Attach my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to wrap down to about halfway between the point and the barb of the hook. There is no tip, tag, or tail on this fly. The rib is a floss as well. This is a insect green. This is a Danville 4-strand Rayon floss. I'm going to attach that to the side of the hook. Getting one wrap in to secure it. And then I will trim that to the length of the body. The body is a yellow floss. This is a Danville 4-strand in yellow. I'm going to use all 4 strands on this, primarily because there is no tail or anything on this. I want the body to be just a little bit thicker. That's just me. I don't know that that's the original intent behind it, was to have it look thicker in that regard. I just think it a little bit better looking body. If there was a tail on this or something, I might just use 3 strands of the floss, but I'm going to use all 4. Tying those in and getting that underbody all nice and smooth, I can now apply the floss body and the rib. notice that when I was applying that rib, I brought it over to my side, gave it a nice tight clockwise twist in it so that the rib went in instead of flat, more as a cord. I just think it adds a little bit more depth to the body. Now I'm going to attach my black thread. This is just a Danville 6/0 in black to finish the fly off. It's interesting because there's no tip or tag or anything on this, as I mentioned, but there's no throat either. The lake green only has a wing made from teal and a collared hackle on it. When I do the teal wing, teal is kind of like mallard flank. It can be rather difficult to find a feather that's going to work for you, and sometimes you have to fudge them a little bit here and there and try something a little different. And they don't come out, I mean, unless you have really nice broad flank feathers to get a nice matched pair of slips on this, they generally don't come out all that great. But I think what you're looking for more is the contrast of black and white underneath. When this swims in the water, all that hackle is going to be pushed back, that wing's going to be pushed back and just kind of, flutter around a little bit. So I don't think it has to be looking exactly just beautiful. So I chose a feather here that's kind of broad, somewhat flat near the tips here, but I've got some really nice dark barring on both sides. I pulled away the fluff. Some of these softer barbs you can just go ahead and take out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip out the center here about halfway down. Then I don't have that stiff center in the resulting wing. And then I'm just going to take this and run it through my fingers, kind of folding it all together. I've done this before on a number of other wet flies. If you look, mostly the ones that have mallard flank. But you fold that together and it gives you just kind of a little bit of almost a post. You can broaden that out a little bit, but that will basically give you just a nice little wing. I want the tips to extend just a little bit past the bend. I'm going to wrap that and secure that in. See, that just gives you a nice little kind of a broad wing. And that will, like I said, that will flatten down like this as that is swinging through the water. Make certain that it's tied in correct on both sides. It's not wrapping around to the underside of the fly. And then I'm going to smooth this off. It almost looks like I'm finishing the fly. I'm not. I'm smoothing it off for a hackle. Keep in mind, we're going to put a hackle on this. I don't want to get too many thread wraps going backwards, even with that hackle in, because then the head gets too large and pronounced. The hackle on this is a light ginger. You could use, say, a hen feather if you want. That would be very, very soft, and that would work very well. Or I have a rooster cape, basically. And that's what I am going to use for this. I want the barbs to be long enough to pretty much go back past the point of the hook, somewhere between the point of the hook and the barb itself. I'm going to peel away the fluff here, just so that I have a nice clean handle. Using my hackle pliers, I shall pinch the tip of that and then spread, I should say stroke those barbs rearward, so I can now clip out all but just a little bit of the tip of that, and that gives me a nice anchor to tie in. keeping those wraps smooth as possible so that we have a nice platform for this hackle to be wrapped in. I'm only going to get about 3 wraps of hackle in there. Got one barb that's being stubborn there. Get my thread back to the base where I wrap that in. Now I'll wrap that hackle in. Like I said, we're only going to get about 3, maybe 4, depends on how full the feather is, how much room you have. I want these wraps pretty much right in front of each other. And then I'll bring number 4 right up here towards the front and tie in that feather. Trim away the excess. I'll sweep back all those barbs. Notice I'm right behind the eye of the hook, which will lend me to covering up all those butt ends and just making a nice small tapered head to the fly. That also has the added advantage that all those hackles now are going to be pointing in more of a rearward direction. I think I've got just a little bit in the eye right there. Yeah, I got a little bit of hackle there. What I can do with that is a couple of different things. The easiest is just to unwrap. That got kind of pushed down over the top of the eye. Unwrap a ways here, and then bring the thread right under it, behind the eye of the hook, and that will kind of wedge it backwards, and I can get some wraps right over it. Keeping in mind, if you're going to be fishing these flies, even if you have a little bit of barbs, I still have just a little tiny bit right up front here. That'll probably get painted over with some lacquer in a little bit. But keep in mind that the fish aren't going to care. So I will flatten out my thread. Seven or 8 turn whip finish in there. Trim away my thread and a little bit of head cement, and then a couple coats of black lacquer, and our lake green is done. As I said, if you want, instead of having some of those stiffer barbs from that rooster, you could tie in a hen and have something that's, a little softer. But I think either way, all of this, like I said, in the water is going to sweep back like this, and it's going to present the right color and everything. A nice little, I'm assuming more of a caddis pattern. Most of these yellow and green type wet flies are tied for representing a caddis. So that is the lake green. Fun little quick wet fly. Thanks for watching today.
Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.